Hello again and welcome to the JoJo and Joe Show. This is the Two Joes podcast coming at you. Today we're talking about UFOs again, and this time hopefully this will be a little bit shorter of a segment, and we're going to try and answer that question that JoJo's been asking a lot in the podcast, is why now? And plus she doesn't really understand what AATIP is, and I didn't do a very good job of explaining it to her, so I am going to try to answer those questions using this video I've got queued up here. Hi JoJo, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I have to say that in the last few episodes here, I'd never have gotten my question answered, which is, and I quote, why now? Why would the government all of a sudden start releasing previously classified data that goes decades and decades and decades into the past? Why now?
So this video I've got queued up here kind of tries to answer that. Well, we'll see if it answers that. It kind of goes over the timeline and what brings us to today's UFO fever, which is going to culminate on June 25th with the Pentagon releasing their declassified UFO files. Hopefully we get some good information.
Yes, and by the way, I think January, oh my goodness, what month is it? June 22nd is actually National UFO Day.
Was it June 22nd or was it July 2nd?
Or July 22nd.
Let's see.
We actually have no clue.
We don't know what we're doing. July 2nd is World UFO Day. July 2nd.
It's got to be before the 4th, because otherwise you can't see anything with all that pollution.
Oh, they might think all the fireworks are UFOs.
There we go. Okay. All right. Now, what are we watching here?
So we're watching a video by Politico. It's entitled "The Pentagon's Upcoming UFO Report Explained."
All right, let's do it.
All right.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. Well, if there's a thing, it's rotating.
Objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
We just have to face the fact that maybe we're not alone in the universe, which hurts our ego a little bit.
And the Senate wants answers.
Anything that enters an airspace that's not supposed to be there is a threat.
My name is Brian Bender, and this is my abduction story. I call it my abduction story because sometimes I felt like I was getting sucked into this UFO enthusiast world. Here is your guide to understanding what's going on with the Pentagon and UFOs. Politico started delving into the UFO issue when we reported one of the first stories about the existence of a Pentagon UFO research office. It's not just they have an office that's looking into this, but there's some real experiences that our pilots are reporting that are getting at least some attention in the Pentagon. What I came to understand was that even within the military, there was a reluctance to look into these things because I think military personnel have been concerned about being labeled, tinfoil hat wearing kooks if they start talking about UFOs. But clearly, there were enough reports that they really couldn't ignore it. Since the UFO task force became news in 2017, more politicians are more comfortable than ever talking about unknown objects in the sky.
We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Let's take a quick look back at how this all happened.
Okay, here we go. Here's the history.
In 1952, the U.S. Air Force launched Project Blue Book to look into UFO sightings, but you'll hear more about that later on. Fast forward to 2008, the Pentagon's secret UFO office known as AATIP was established. It wasn't until 2017 when footage of Navy pilots witnessing UFOs leaked and the existence of the Pentagon UFO office became known that the story really started to get interesting. By 2019, members of Congress were receiving classified briefings about UFOs. In 2020, the Senate Intelligence Committee, led by Senator Marco Rubio, decides they want to request a government report on UFOs. A public report that not only pulls together what the government might know about UFOs, but more importantly, what they're doing to get to the bottom of these mysteries. When the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program was created at the Pentagon, it was given a fairly innocuous-sounding military name. That way, there was no reference to UFOs. In the summer...
All right, so there you got a little timeline of why now. Does that help answer that question for you at all?
Well, not really. It doesn't answer why in 2017 that they all of a sudden admit they had a program. You know, they're acting like, oh, we just barely formed this AATIP. How do we know it wasn't there before? And why would they start something and then end it a few years later in 1969? There were plenty of other sightings between then and 2008. So this doesn't answer why. This is just a timeline of what happened. I want an explanation as to why.
Oh.
Why now all of a sudden is it acceptable in our society and in our government for one part of the government, but the Senate has requested this information, which is going to be delivered by July 25th, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that doesn't answer why. It just says this is what happened. There's no why. There's no explanation.
Well, the why as to why these departments were created, or why the Blue Book project was ended and a new one came along to take its place.
And why all of a sudden now is it becoming acceptable in our society to talk about unidentified flying objects, or as they call them, unidentified aerial phenomena.
And that's kind of what I tried to explain before. Because these things are happening, you know, we had a senator get involved, Harry Reid.
Why is the government all of a sudden fessing up to this?
And then I explained that too. Well, these leaks came out, and they couldn't deny these leaks when they're from Navy fighter pilots.
Okay, why weren't there leaks in the past? There were plenty of Navy fighter pilots over the last 50 years that have seen UFOs and gotten them on radar, as we've learned watching the Basement Office these past few weeks.
Right.
That's not an explanation. The aliens have pretty much been around the entire span of my lifetime.
Yeah, so
and why
what makes
all of
you
a sudden
feel like...
now? Why all of a sudden now is the government going to fess up to having studied it? Why now? That doesn't answer why now, does it?
So what kind of explanation are you looking for? I mean, I guess I don't know.
What exactly happened so that all of a sudden it is now okay for the government to admit to UFOs and for our society to talk about it? What happened?
I mean, we've always been talking about it.
No, we haven't. We've always been hiding it.
I mean, you saw videos. You saw videos. You saw videos.
UFOs.
You saw videos from Belgium where that Belgium general came out and said, "Yep, this happened. We scrambled fighter jets."
What year was that?
It. They weren't. That was like in the 90s, I think.
Okay, that particular interview was in the 90s?
Yeah, the whole thing, the sightings and everything.
Okay, so why is the United States all of a sudden, you think they're feeling pressure from other countries to finally admit it?
Interesting theory.
I mean, really, there's no why yet in this, so let's finish watching it and see if there's a why. Okay. Unless you can find one for me.
Well, I guess I don't know what why would work for you, but we can continue watching this. It's
a real reason.
It's about 12 minutes long.
Okay.
And they talk about this Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, which is the current UFO program. And they made it sound like that, so it doesn't sound like it's looking into just UFOs or whatever. Again, there's some stigma there. But there's this guy who comes in to run this department who kind of, I think, might answer the why thing, but we'll see.
All right, we're listening.
Of 2017, my reporting uncovered that this office had existed. They'd been given a significant amount of resources, and so I started digging to find out the origins of the office, also where all that money was spent. And it was former Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid who secured $22 million to establish the UFOs AATIP program. On our journey, we talked to some politicians themselves. Good morning, Senator Reid. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I was the first to get involved in this. And much to the consternation of my staff, they told me, stay the hell away from this. It's not anything that's going to help you.
So at the time, it sounds like your political advisors thought that this could be damaging politically. In other words, if you're associated with this, people will think Harry Reid has lost it.
It's not just a bunch of weirdos that are thinking about this. I think it's people who are really curious. The more time we spend on this, the more people are beginning to understand.
Are you hopeful that some of these very secretive agencies will be willing to share more of what they're seeing, what they're gathering?
What we have to do is understand that there are different levels of transparency. I think the administration has an obligation to make sure that what information they have that is important to the security of our country, that they make sure members of Congress know what's going on.
One of the biggest challenges, not the biggest challenge in this subject is, and this is true of any subject, but when it comes to UFOs, it's kind of on steroids, and that is separating fact from fiction, from fantasy, from theories, because there's a million theories and lots of different perspectives on what these things could be or not be.
Something strange happened in the skies over Arizona that still hasn't been fully explained.
Fife Symington was one of thousands who witnessed one of the most famous UFO sightings in recent history. He was also governor of Arizona at the time, making him probably the highest public official to ever report a UFO. I met with him at the Arizona Historical Society, where there was a new exhibit to the Phoenix Lights. So take us back.
They got an exhibit at the Phoenix Historical Society dedicated to the Phoenix Lights incident. I think that's funny.
That's very cool. It still hasn't answered my question, why.
So the fact that in 2008, Senator Harry Reid, who was the highest senator, highest level of senator there is, seniority and all that, decides, hey, something's going on. I wanted to establish a department to look into this. That doesn't help explain or answer the why that you have in your mind.
Okay, so all of a sudden the Senate decides that it's going to try to figure out what another part of the government is doing regarding unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Well,
correct?
This is a good question, but at this point, from what I'm led to believe, is that there is no UFO program in 2008 until Harry Reid establishes this AATIP program.
Okay, you believe that?
Well, like I said, there's this huge Black Ops Pentagon budget that no one knows where that black hole money goes.
So in 1969, they closed down the existing program, and you maintain that the United States government did nothing about all those UFO sightings until 2008?
Well, I think there was when that timeline showed another program that came in called Paperclip. So it went from Blue Book to Paperclip to now AATIP, I believe, are the three programs. Should we go through that timeline again, or?
If you would like, if you think it would help, it might be a good idea.
I'm just trying to help you answer the why, if I can. I'm not even sure I can, but I want to try.
Okay, well, so we're stopping right here with the guy who did that little show, where his cohort comes out in the alien hat, right? That was in 2008. Governor of Arizona.
That was in 97. The Phoenix Lights were in 97.
97. Okay, there we go. So in 97, you maintain there was no government agency.
No, I think it might have been Paperclip at that point.
Let's look at that timeline, because I don't remember seeing Paperclip on it.
I'm at 451 here when the governor comes in. Let's see.
And he made fun of it at the time. He made fun of it in order to not commit political suicide. So what I want to know is why all of a sudden now is it acceptable for the Senate to be demanding this information from the rest of the government?
Well, and like Senator Reid said, or that guy who was interviewing said, your staff was saying, keep clear of this. This is not going to help your career or anything like that, right?
Well, it did help his career because he got, $22 million to do whatever he wanted with? I mean, seriously.
That's not helping your career. That's a senator saying, look, I want this looked into. I'm going to stick this into some other piece of legislation so I can have my department that's looking into it that can report to me and tell me what's going on.
Yeah, and that is the way the government works. It's pretty sad.
It's
pretty sad.
So here we are in 1952.
The U.S. Air Force launched Project Blue Book to look into UFO sightings. But you'll hear more.
See, and so that was 52. That was, 5 years after Roswell.
Okay, good. Why did they wait 5 years?
Fast forward to 2008.
Okay, pause right there. Okay, so there you go. We have 69, Blue Book is killed, and then 2008, Pentagon establishes AATIP. Question number one, why the hell would they wait 5 years after Roswell before deciding to look into it? That's bullshit. That's obviously bullshit. And then why would they go, what is that?
69 to 2008. You were right. They didn't mention Paperclip at all, did they?
So I'm just saying we don't even have close to the full story.
No.
And then all of a sudden now we have, first of all, this in 2008 was started by a senator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A senator all of a sudden decides that we need to be worried about unidentified objects in the sky. What the hell? What happened to our Defense Department this whole time? You know what I mean? I mean, they said, we consider unidentified objects in our airspace to be a threat.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the government said. So doesn't that fall under the Defense Department? Why would a senator have to
Kick him in the pants?
Yeah.
Well, because it's such a taboo subject, I guess. Yeah.
And you
questions.
really do believe,
Good questions.
You believe that whole time, 37 years or however long that was,
No,
they didn't have any government agency looking into any kind of UFO thing at all.
That's a good point. I mean, I guess the Air Force would have to take the lead on that, but, if there's a black ops department that's doing it,
then they're still not telling us what's going on.
Yeah, it's still really fuzzy, isn't it? Good points.
And maybe they missed your paperclip thing, but how long did that last?
I'm not sure. I wish I had the facts in front of me, but I really don't.
It's okay. Well, let's go back to the governor.
AATIP was established. It wasn't until 2017 when footage of Navy pilots
Yeah. Okay. So go back to the senator. Let's see here. What about here?
Fiction from fantasy from theories, because there's a million theories and lots of different perspectives on what these things could be or not be.
Something strange happened in the skies over Arizona that still hasn't been fully explained.
Fife Symington was one of thousands who witnessed one of the most famous UFO sightings in recent history. He was also governor of Arizona at the time, making him probably the highest public official to ever report a UFO. I met with him at the Arizona Historical Society, where there was a new exhibit to the Phoenix Lights. So take us back, 1997, you're governor of Arizona. You were on your way home from the governor's office, right?
Yes. And I've been listening to the news. There have been some sightings, and I said, I'm going to go take the car, and I'm going to try to get to the high ground and take a look and see if I can see these Phoenix Lights that everybody's talking about. I was being a truant. I was slipped my detail, and I drove my car down and crossed the 51 and went up into this little park, and there were a whole bunch of people. It was really dark, a whole bunch of people standing around, and I just sort of very quietly moved in and turned and looked to the west, which is where the bright lights were. And then somebody in the crowd said, "Oh my gosh, look at that!" And so I pivoted and turned, and there it was. It was coming right over us. Squaw Peak in the background. It was really majestic. The thing that really was extraordinary was there was absolutely no sound at all, no noise. And everybody was quiet, and it just passed over, and no jet engine noise, nothing.
So as a pilot yourself, unlike anything...
Never seen anything like it.
Or imagine.
No. I keep telling my friends that nothing will really ever be settled until whoever they are decide to land on the White House lawn and get down and say we've come in peace.
So we know
I
the
like
government has
that.
studied
I like
UFOs and the phenomenon for decades. But the last known public investigation was a long, long time ago, nearly 50 years ago, when Project Blue Book wrapped up. Since then, as far as we know, the only public effort has been AATIP, the project that was started by Harry Reid. I should mention that these days I'm based most of the time in Arizona, which is the perfect backdrop if you're covering UFOs, because there's lots of history of sightings in the southwest of America. The next step in our guide is to meet the true believers, and you start to see it's not your typical tinfoil hat-wearing fanatics, at least not always. Two of my guides into this world of UFOs have been Karen Berard, who runs the UFO Congress, which is an annual gathering of all sorts of academics, scientists, average citizens who want to know the answers, as well as Alejandro Rojas, who is a journalist, tech writer, who spent many years unpacking fact from fiction in the world of UFOs.
So who is supposed to put this together and release it?
Well, the congressional language is pretty clear. The Director of National Intelligence has to publish a public report by June. And, the language is pretty specific.
There's no way to know whether they're going to be telling the truth.
Well, I
don't think they're going to lie.
I don't think they're going to make stuff up.
Yeah.
But
they might not. They might it's top secret.
Yeah. They might not include a lot of things.
Right. I'm most interested, I guess, in what the Navy will say, because they're the most vested in the whole thing. It's their fault as it even got to this point. So what are they going to say?
I think the government has created a lot of their own problem when it comes to this topic. I don't subscribe to the majority of the conspiratorial ideas, and that's due to research.
After the close of Project Blue Book, there was a memo that came out where one of the generals said, that's okay, we didn't need Blue Book anyway. All of the cases that have, are a concern for national security go elsewhere. This data goes into these tiny little pockets here and there. And so hopefully that will be the result. We'll see in this report that they'll be combining.
The question is, okay, once they centralize the information, the government centralizes it, will they share it with the academics, with the scientists outside the government that might be able to make sense of it?
Right, because the government isn't a scientific place, but if they can give, some of the professors some information, maybe they would have to get clearance first in order for them to start working on it. But at least that's a start.
Finally, the last stop on this guide is a former government UFO expert.
Can we pause right here?
And government research isn't just...
So, correct me if I'm wrong here,
Yeah.
Angel, but what they're saying at this point, if you boil it down, is that the government has continued to collect the information, but they've kept it so decentralized that not only any one department can make any sense of it. It sounds like this is a failure in the last 50 years of our government to do its duty, which is to keep us safe. And if there's these unidentified aerial phenomenon going on that could be a threat, why are they keeping it, like he said, into all these little pockets, and now it's going to get hopefully put into one central place?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're going to release anything. So my question again is, all of a sudden, why now are we demanding that we get it centralized?
I think some senators finally got pissed off. They're saying, look, there's enough evidence here that there is a threat.
That?
Yeah, what did Harry Reid say, or see rather, that triggered that he decided, look, I need this $22 million to start this program, to start looking into this stuff and securing our airspace.
And then what triggered the senator who is demanding to see all the information now by June 25th? What triggered that?
That was probably the release of the Navy footage from the fighter jet planes.
And what triggered that?
They leaked. And I think they're going to get to who leaked them here in a minute.
Aha.
But first, we get to visit our good old friend, Mr. Pope. This is his house.
Yes.
He lives in Tucson.
Yes, he's very knowledgeable.
Contained in the United States, of course. Nick Pope has become one of the most credible and well-known researchers on the issue of UFOs. He worked for many years studying the issue for the British Ministry of Defense, and I met up with him at his house in Tucson, Arizona.
The second and critical question is, do UAPs represent a possible threat to the defense of the realm? We could argue never shown a hostile intent. However, Russian aircraft attempting to penetrate the UK air defence region in the Cold War never showed hostile intent, but they certainly represented a threat. Thus, the only
if you show up and you don't do anything doesn't mean that you're not necessarily...
And this is it in a nutshell. Thus, the only logical conclusion that we can come to is that we do not know if UAPs represent a threat to the defence of the realm. And this is defence intelligence, science and technology.
I was a career civil servant in the British government in the Ministry of Defence, so the UK equivalent of the DoD in the States. I was given a job where my duties included researching and investigating the UFO phenomenon to assess any defence implications. I came in really with no baggage, no kind of preconceived notions, really an open mind, and I tried to take a data-led approach.
Do you have any sort of guideposts to figure out, okay, what is credible data?
There are a lot of well-meaning people who see UFOs who just misidentify things, of course. I mean, that's actually the majority of sightings by a clear margin. We dropped UFO and substituted in UAP. And this was something that we did in the Ministry of Defence in the 90s. Now, we didn't invent the term, but we adopted it precisely because we wanted to get within the Ministry of Defence stakeholder engagement. If you go in and say, boss, I'd like some funding for UFOs, no way. If it's like, well, we've got some things going on in our airspace and we want to do a study into unidentified aerial phenomena, it reframes it as maybe a science problem, a defense, national security issue.
Having covered the Pentagon and the military for a long time, I was familiar a little bit with the history of the military looking into these unexplained sightings. From what I've been reporting, very senior people in the U.S. government who have the security clearances you would think that would allow them to know about these secret programs, they claim they don't know about them. One of the things we've tried to do in our reporting is focusing on what the government is doing about them. So what kind of taxpayer dollars is being spent to research these things? What agencies are involved? That leads us to this public report. And I think Congress's intent there is to try and force the government to be a little more organized about it. Because there's all these reports and all of these theories, conspiracy theories about what the government knows and what it might be hiding. Usually the government has the answers. Somebody does. They know where the document is. They know what the enemy is doing, or at least they have a good sense of it. This is like that rare instance where even people who are supposed to know are like, I have no idea.
Well, there you have it. Oh.
Well,
I
what do
guess,
you think, Manjo?
I think we failed to answer why.
Thank you. You know, I think it's good that we watched that, because we can discuss the fact that, is it really possible? Is it really possible that the United States government has dropped the ball on this for the past 50 years?
I'm thinking no.
You think they're hiding?
Because if you listen to Bob Lazar, who claims he worked on trying to unengineer these things, backward engineer them, he said it was all compartmentalized, which he said the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. He was working on this, but they wouldn't let him see these other departments because, he didn't have a need to know.
Yes, I remember that, but that is a failure of our government, because unless we put all the pieces together, we can never come up with a scientific conclusion.
Is it a failure? Is it a feature? I mean, that's how they built the nuclear bomb, is they kept it compartmentalized so no one knew what was going on.
Until it was too late.
Yeah.
And then they started testing it in central Utah.
Yeah.
And, I have family that died because of that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if they would have kept the whole thing in communication with each other, they would have stopped before they got to the point, realized what they were developing, and decided not to do it.
Well, they knew what they were developing.
Well.
They were at war. They were trying to win the war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the downfall of humanity, compartmentalized. That's how we justify doing just about everything we do.
Well, it's what you do when you want to keep something secret. And they obviously want to keep this UFO stuff secret. It's high-tech stuff. It's next-level stuff.
Okay, but why do they want to keep it secret?
Because it's next-level stuff. Whoever gets this technology and can use it, it's a game changer. It's
okay, and obviously it's not something that the human race has. So why are we trying to hide it? You think they're not?
I still think there's this.
I know.
He just got done saying people don't even know who does what, who has what, who knows where this is or that is. Like the other guy at the table, that journalist said, things get classified immediately and then they disappear.
So this whole thing is advanced technology that our government has been hiding from us for more than 50 years. That's really what you think?
I think it's it's my working theory right now, yeah.
And how insane is that? 50 years? Why would you hide something like that for 50 years? That doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
Why would you not admit it for 50 years?
Exactly. Why? Do you have an answer to that?
Well, I'm going to go back to it's high tech, it's game changer, you don't want anybody else to have this, you don't want it to fall in the wrong hands kind of thing.
Okay, so in other words, the messed up political situation in the United States right now is going to be responsible for revealing some of the biggest military secrets in humanity. Is that what you're saying?
I think the industrial military complex has their hands on this technology, and they don't want anybody else to have it.
Yeah, and right now the American government is trying to get them to fess up.
Yeah.
Because they're mad that they had something going on.
They're being kept in the dark.
About. Yeah.
They don't want to be kept in the dark. He's a senator. He's the highest ranking senator in the country.
Again, my question is, why now? No matter what, if it's aliens or humans that have this technology. My question is still valid.
Yes, it is. What do you think is the answer to that question? What's Occam's razor for you in that situation? Why now?
What do you mean?
What's your working theory as to why now?
don't really have an answer for that. And that is why I'm so skeptical about this whole thing.
Skeptical in what way? I mean, you believe in aliens, you believe in UFOs. What are you skeptical about?
I'm skeptical about this big reveal that's coming up because I think it's going to end up proving that it's a fraud when really it's not. That there are no aliens. And it's just going to be a big cover-up. So Occam's razor for me is, if there isn't a good enough reason that I believe as to why now, I'm just going to think this is just another giant twisted cover-up that's been planned from the very beginning. Either that or the different government agencies have grown so messed up that they can't even communicate with each other, and this really is a breakdown of our government to where we can't trust them. We never really have been able to, but we didn't know it.
I think June 25th is going to come and go, and nothing new is going to be revealed. I mean, maybe some of these videos that we have now are going to be a little bit longer. Maybe we'll get some new videos, maybe. But I think everything, like I think I saw another video where they said everything immediately becomes classified top secret and disappears. So I don't think anything new is going to come out, because this is only declassified stuff that's going to come out. It's not like they're going to declassify their top secret stuff and give it to us, you know what I mean? So I think nothing much is going to happen. The government has already admitted that there's UAPs out there that they can't explain. That's a fact. So I don't know about, you're saying that, they're going to cover it up. It's too late for that. They've already admitted that these are actual fighter jet radar video of things they cannot explain.
And you still think that it is our government that has manufactured these things?
People don't know. People don't know. The government's huge. $780 billion of programs and departments and
just so I'm clear,
people doing stuff.
You believe that the United States government has developed this technology more than 50 years ago?
They've been working on it for the last 50 years.
It crashed in the Nevada desert in Roswell over 50 years ago, and it's their own technology. And they've gotten good enough at it now that we're on to the black triangles, right? It has changed. Like you say, it has changed.
They're evolving the technology.
They're getting better at it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And a government whose right hand does not know what its left hand is doing is dangerous. So I really hope that is not the truth of this.
We're the most dangerous country in the world. That's why people are nervous around us. And we start chanting USA, USA, sends chills up their spine a little bit. And I can understand that.
Yeah, me too.
Heck yeah.
It's sad.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this little podcast here, because I don't want to combine it with our basement office reviews and watching. So,
which we will do soon.
Yeah.
Because my question of why has not yet been answered. Why now?
Thanks for joining us here at the JoJo and Joe Show.
JoJo out.
See you next time.